Yeah. Hello, y'all. My name is Sooraj. I'm an engineer at Hasuga. I basically work with the front-end team. I used to work with some IoT and IoT technologies as well in the past. I sometimes tweet in this handle, so if somebody wants to have a conversation, you can just directly ping me and start a conversation. I'm always happy to do that. All right. So today I'm going to talk a little bit on a crazy idea, which I'd say um, IoT-based browser authentication. So if you just look at the topic, it's actually three topics. One is IoT, browser, and authentication. That's exactly what I'm going to talk. So just to give the context, so when you think about a IoT system, this is some basic structure of an IoT system. So you'll have some devices, and the devices will send the data to a gateway, and gateway will send the data to the cloud. So if you look, the sensor to gateway communication might be using some relevant protocols of technologies like Bluetooth or LoRaWAN or serial connection or something of that. Again, the gateway to data center is communicated with MQTT or HTTP or WebSocket or this kind of technologies, just to give the context of what is typical IoT system looks like. So now let's talk about browsers. So modern browsers are not the same. It is something more, and it is not just about rendering UI, right? And which is more like native apps. So if you look at the modern web applications, it's more like native applications. It can talk to OS and it can talk to sensors and so on. And if you look some of the very interesting APIs which is available nowadays in the modern browsers are something like Bluetooth, as I'm going to talk about, and USB. You can directly talk with USB devices. And you can talk with native file system, and you can talk about some sort of sensors, and you can do some NLP, IoT, AML, those kind of things in the browser runtime itself. And there are some interesting tools like service workers and messaging, offline first approach, and the related tools. And the very good thing is nowadays the browsers are not only supporting the traditional protocols, it can support a lot more than that. Something like MQTT, WebRTC, RTSP, RTMP, so on. So going back, so can Bluetooth do web authentication? This is a crazy idea which I've been thinking for last few months, or maybe more than that. Um, so this idea came when I was reading about this technology called Web Bluetooth, which was introduced in 2011, 2014 by Google. This is nothing but um, the browser. From the browser, it allows you to connect with Bluetooth low energy devices. Um, and I was also thinking with some other possibilities and what and all we can do with Web Bluetooth. Some ideas, something like when you want to use a vending machine nowadays, you want to install their application and connect with the vending machine and pair the device and pay and then get your things out of it. Right? And for that, we are installing a mobile application. And also, you can consider browser as an IoT gateway. That's also a wonderful topic. It's a big topic. And then you can think of like unlocking automobiles and some lockers. Maybe if you think about some self-driving self-driving car or maybe scooters or something. Right now, we all are using mobile applications for that. We can simply do that with the browsers with this technology. And also, you can think about something interesting. Like you can think of like a remote controller to your browser. So you'll have a mobile application on your hand, and you can control the browser events. So if I go a little bit more technical, you can dispatch events remotely from a mobile phone within that device, so that you know to use my mouse or touchpad to change your um, uh, video content if you're playing Netflix or something of that sort. There's a lot more which you can think through this technology. Okay, so like I said, consumer apps are getting overloaded, so that's a wonderful reason of, why we should think of something like Bluetooth. Now let's talk about authentication. So um, I'm going to I'm going to take an example of a JOT based authentication system, a simple one. And if you look, current authentication system is something like on the login screen, you'll have username and password. So the browser or the client will collect this information and send the data to the cloud, and the server will validate the request. And once it is validated, it generates a JOT token, and which will be expiring in X minutes. And then the JOT token will be used by the client to make the consecutive requests. So basically, that's how a simple authentication system works. And if I plot it in a graph in a screen, it's gonna look something like this. So the client will make a request with the credentials, and auth server will validate the credentials and generates a token if it is valid. And then the client will send the token to the application server for the actual data. So my thought is like we have this auth server, right? So the idea is, what if the auth server is replaced with a smart BLE device? So ultimate possibilities, right? So what if a browser has an option, something similar to login with Google or something, login with GitHub or something, just like that? What if the browser has something like login with Bluetooth, right? Uh, so and also think of like you have your smartwatch. So nowadays your smartphone or smartwatch can be used to even start your car. So that's how the technology is going. So why can't it really used for authenticating a web application? It's awesome, right? So you come, and if you have your watch, you can do it. If you have your smartphone, you can do it. Just like the authenticator applications, you can do some. You can make some custom devices. And what if you really want to give critical access within a particular premise? So let's say I run a factory and I don't want to give access to a technician who's not in that premise. So this is something of what I mentioned, geofencing. So you can get access only if you reach that place. So the proposed system will change something like this. So instead of the auth server, there will be a physical device which will act like an auth server. You can still bind another auth server and give necessary access to only this particular device so that it can act like a proxy and do stuff. So the thing is, the refresh token will not be given to the client. It will just be kept inside this physical device. Or you can really consider this device as a authentication server, and you can do whatever you want. It's all designer things. Okay, now let's talk about how can you do that, right? So I'm going to give a small demo which will let you to identify what I'm talking about. And all right, so now we can see the screen. Let me take my mobile phone because I have a authenticator. I have a Bluetooth simulator application on my hand. This is I'm using. Um, so I'm gonna start the simulator and send some advertisement. The device will tell that I'm ready to accept connections. So now, um, so we have login with Bluetooth button, and when I click on that, it actually opens up a dialog box. This is, if you look, this is a COM pop-up. This is a COM dialog box, and it says it just search for the nearby devices, and you can see that my device is listed. So as soon as I click on pair, it just connected to this particular device, right? And if you look at this network, it actually made a request to a GraphQL endpoint. So in this case, I'm using a Hasura instance for this. So what is happening is I have configured a user access on my mobile phone. So using that particular user credentials, it authenticated onto data server. So in this case, Hasura instance is what I'm using for. So I have passed information for the user 50. So I can only see the information for the access that is given to that particular user. So let's say I have given access for a particular book on for this particular user. I'm only able to see this particular book once I log in. So this is like as simple as that. And let's close this and go back to the screen. Uh, yes. Back. Yeah, so this is as simple as this. You can find the nearby BLE devices and choose the device, and the device will send the authentication details, and the client will. So once the device is getting closer, it gets detected and it can be paired, and the JOT will be sent to the client, and the client will make the request to the actual server and fetch the data based on that. And if the JOT is not valid, it is gone. And one interesting thing is if you go out of the range, it's gone. Right? You don't get access because the JOT is valid for 5 minutes or whatever the time frame that you give. And yeah, so if you look at the implementation, it's quite easy. The window object has something called navigator.bluetooth, and then you can just request the device, and you can pass some filters. So if you don't want to show all the devices nearby. And there is the interesting library which you can play around with. This is available as an NPM package, web Bluetooth utils. It helps you to do some operations very quickly. And there is an inbuilt BLE debugger in Chrome. So if you just go to Chrome, colon slash Bluetooth hyphen internals, you can see this debugger and find all the nearby devices. And again, this technology is still experimental, so it's not really production ready. So you can read about that before you really go into production or if you try it on production. And again, there's a lot of samples available by the Google Chrome team, and you can just play around with it on your browser, and you will get a sample mobile application, Google Play Store if you have an Android mobile phone, and you can play around with all these things. Thank you. That's pretty much it. Uh, I I really appreciate like we can talk about anything related to this, and I'm happy to answer any questions.